What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Discuss The Expanse, the show where we're going to be discussing Season 6, Episode 2 of The Expanse. My name is Nick. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Danny. How you doing today, man?
Doing great, man. Definitely am having a good time with the season so far, so I'm excited to talk about this episode with you.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're definitely going to dive into it here. Before we do, I just want to let you guys know a framework for the podcast. We start off by going over our general thoughts on the episode, where we think it ranks with the other episodes, and kind of give our general feelings there. Then we dive into a scene-by-scene recap of the episode, where we go scene by scene and discuss more in depth about specific details and stuff that happened in the episode as well. And then lastly, we go into predictions, hot takes, any kind of big, bold stuff that we want to talk about going into the season, going forward into the season here. First of all, what was the title, director, and episode or writer for Season 6, Episode 2?
602 is titled Azure Dragon. It was directed by Jeff Woolnough, and it was actually written by Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank, the creators of The Expanse, who write under the James S.A. Corey name. So solid work all around.
Awesome. And we did, I did want to address something that we brought up in last podcast, which is we were asking where Bull is, right? We were like, where's Bull? We haven't seen Bull or anything like that. What was really cool is I kind of tweeted that out on at the Discuss Pod, if you guys want to follow there. But I tweeted that out, and James S. Corey actually retweeted it and said Tycho Station ? So he thinks maybe he potentially running Tycho Station or something along those lines. I think it's funny when the author that manifested all of this stuff in his head puts a question mark next to his theory. I just think that's pretty hilarious. But yeah, he thinks he might be running Tycho, and yeah, that's definitely a possibility, obviously, and or if he's suggesting that, then that would be the case. But it seemed odd to me just because in the last episode they showed Tycho being under Free Navy control, so I feel like for that to be the case, maybe Bull must have maybe capitulated to the Free Navy in some form, or he's taken over, or he's maybe feigning capitulation and just kind of like gonna try to beat them from the inside out, potentially.
I see that for Bull.
Maybe he's acting,
Yeah. That would be really interesting for Bull to, especially considering his prejudice, to be under a situation where the Free Navy has power. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, and there's also a possibility that we don't see Bull this season. There's also a possibility that maybe, and we're going to talk about this once we start into the overview, but there's 6 episodes in this season. So guys, we're already a third of the way through, which it seems like it's going so quickly. But it's possible that given the small amount of time they had left to close the story out, that maybe he just didn't make they didn't have time to kind of add in his character into this last season too. So that's also a possibility as well. But without wasting any more time, Danny, what were your thoughts on Season 6, Episode 2, Azure Dragon, and how do you think it stacks up with the first episode of the season?
So I'll start off and say I definitely think it is a stronger episode than season 1 or than episode 1 for me. I really enjoyed most of the plots in there. I was surprised by some of the stuff that came back this soon, and I appreciated the story that I appreciated the most was probably the little sub story with Clarissa feeling part of the crew. That was probably my favorite little element of the episode. But overall, I enjoyed it more than episode 1. How about you?
Same, yeah. I think I would put it above episode 1. I think this one was a little more fast paced, a little more. It felt a little like I felt a lot more get up and go in this episode as far as things happening. That awesome. We're going to talk about the awesome sequence with the Azure Dragon and the Rocinante, and that whole sequence there was really, really well done and really fun. So yeah, I would put it above episode 1 here. Really, really strong episode in this one here. But we're going to go ahead and dive in to the scene by scene recap. The episode actually opens with Kara, I think is her name, the little girl on Laconia. And she is picking up right where we left off in the last episode, where she's seen that there's a dying bird alien, for lack of a better term, and she's rushing to kind of give it first aid or trying to help that there. So she's running back to her home. Looks like they have a little settlement where her family lives. It looks like she has a younger brother and a mother and father there. We get the information that she fed the bird like a small amount of a protein bar, and it seems like that does not agree with it, which is an understatement. It's very toxic to them. And then the mother explains to her that because they're of maybe from a different like biochemistry or something like that, they can't eat the food on Laconia, and Laconia can't eat the food that they eat as well. They just don't agree with each other there. And then we get a kind of off-screen speech or off-screen talk where they get a call and they have to go to some meeting. And I hear the parents say, "We don't have anything to do with what they are building in the sky." And apparently the soldiers called a meeting. So what I'm deducing from this is there's kind of like maybe military operation that's handling the stuff in the sky, and they're more like in a settlement scientific vein, and they don't really have much to do with what is going on with the overarching proto molecule kind of arc that's happening on Laconia. There, what were your thoughts on this scene from when she brings it to them? They discuss about the biochemistry stuff and them not clicking there, to when she decides to kind of grab a drone and go back to the nest and stuff. What were your thoughts on this whole kind of Laconia scene from start to finish?
So this was what I was referring to earlier when I said I was not expecting to go back to this story as quickly as we did.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting this to be one of those things where maybe we get a flash forward at the end of the season, and this is, a settlement that we follow at that time. And so coming back to it so quickly was interesting. I liked the whole strange dog and how it responded to the bird after she ended up coming back. I like that little scene because it kind of showed that, hey, like, this thing is cute, but it's got a little bite to it. And I do like, and I agree with you when it comes to the idea of there's kind of like this more scientific colonization as well as the militaristic. And I'm curious to see if we're going to see more division amongst that, and whether or not it's going to become a relevant plot point. Because right now it's just kind of happening in the background, right? And I'm curious to see, why are we following this little girl in particular? Why is it important to set up that, hey, this is a completely different biochemistry, their origins may be different. Like, yes, we can breathe their air, but if these materials are toxic to the point where we have to grow our own food, what does that mean? What does that entail?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we learning this information now? How is that relevant? So these are the kind of questions that I had when I walked away from it, but it was an exciting continuation because it was unexpected for me.
Yeah, I kind of echo those points too. I did not expect to come back to Laconia so quickly in episode 2. Like you said, I thought it was going to be something where it was a season opener, and then it was like kind of going to bookend the season and kind of be like a season ender that kind of maybe led into something. We've already discussed that we think there's probably going to be some other stuff after this in some vein. How I'm kind of curious as to how you feel about that. How do you feel about coming back to Laconia? Because it felt bittersweet to me because I do have those questions like you do. I kind of want to see how they resolve those different questions about Laconia. But at the same time, I realize like we're a third of the way through the season, and there's only so many minutes that can be devoted in this season, especially if they're claiming this is like the final season. This is like the wrap up season here, and it's like the more minutes we get on Laconia, because this was a pretty long sequence. I remember thinking like I mean, obviously I have a lot of trust in Ty and Dan and stuff like that, but it's like hopefully the payoff for devoting this much time in the final season to this sequence kind of comes later on. But I did kind of have like a bittersweet feeling about it, where I'm like, I kind of want to get more of the characters we love, to kind of wrap their stuff up. Did you feel that? Did you feel that too? Or like, are you concerned at all about the amount of time being spent there?
What I'm coming to imagine, and I think I might have said this on the last pod, is that I don't think we're going to see the resolution of the proto-molecule storyline. And I think season 6 is going to primarily take care of the Marco Inaros situation and resolve things with Philip probably.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of going into the season with that mentality.
Right.
And so the idea of them being on Laconia and having that ship that we know had some kind of proto-molecule situation from the season 5 finale, that's kind of got me like, all right, so what is the purpose of this? Is how I'm looking at it, as opposed to like, oh, we're going to lose time. I'm like, okay, so they're kind of handling the proto-molecule thing. But if this is the way that they're doing it, why? Like, what is this actually setting up? What is the payoff that we're getting from this? And so it's got me, I'll say, cautiously optimistic to start out with.
Okay.
Only because I feel like the last 3 seasons have built to Marco Inaros being the final guy.
Yeah. Yeah, my other question too about that scene was I'm wondering if the dog or the strange dog, I guess we call it a dog. I'm wondering if it's like if it's poison now, right? So like she gives the protein bar to this small bird, and the small bird dies pretty quickly from when she gives it to her. Like it seems very toxic to her, and then the dog eats the bird. It seems like it could, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like the dog is potentially either, I don't know if it's gonna kill it, but it might, I don't know, it might be like somehow poisoned or toxic. Maybe that's gonna be the story. She's gonna have to kind of nurse it or something, or something along those lines. But I did kind of wonder that as well. It goes to the next scene where we're back on the Rocinante. They're resupplying with the UN supply ship. They go up and Holden gets a comm from the UN supply ship saying your mission specialist is boarding. She's going to be boarding on there. And he's like, mission specialist. And then she goes, they say it's straight from the UN from Avasarala. So obviously we all know at this point who that is. And it was really cool. We finally get to see Roberta Draper board the Rocinante. I think that's something everyone's been kind of waiting for, is seeing her interacting with the crew there. She comes in and boards the ship and starts to kind of, starts to break down to Holden what's going on. What did you think of her introduction, finally coming onto the Rocinante and everything? And then if you want to go into a little detail about the plan that she has and kind of speak on that with that they go over with Amos and the entire crew.
Yeah, for sure. So I love Bobby because she is one of many very solid women characters on the show. And since her introduction as that jarhead in season 2, I've loved her. And so when she gets to interact with Holden and she kind of brings that whole like tough, gruff, I'm a badass sort of situation, I love seeing them interact. And I also really liked that Holden had Clarissa kind of go into hiding a little bit until they figured out a little bit more, and for Clarissa to be a little bit of a sticky point for them, I thought was a good natural kind of drama. And so when Bobby comes in and she's talking about like, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to capture this. I like the conflict because Avasarala wants to use this for a political sort of situation, and Bobby is all about that and furthering that plan. Whereas Holden is like, we're here to just wreck stuff. Like we got to take them out. And so that clash and Bobby basically pulling rank is good because it challenges Holden, it challenges everyone, and lets them know like, if we want to win this war, we're gonna have to be on the same page. And right now I'm the mission captain, and that is the page that we need to be on. So it was a good drama for me. I liked the scene. What do you think?
Yeah, I liked the whole sequence with her finally boarding. It was really cool seeing them there. I really like the dynamic between Bobby and Amos. And we'll talk about some of it later in the episode as well. But she is very kind of dismissive of Amos or something. She says like, "Don't worry your pretty little head," and she calls him I think Pee Wee later in the episode as well. She's kind of taking the reins in that dynamic so far, at least. So I thought that was fun. Some notes I had about the scene. I really love him floating down the stairs or floating down the ladder like that. I thought that was a really cool shot, as well as her suit kind of just floating behind her as she walks in and stuff. Everything, like I said, everything is so well thought out there, but those are really cool grounding world building moments when those are executed that well, and they're always ancillary. They're not showcased in the scene. They're always just kind of like, it's just a natural thing. I also loved so we get a little guy at the beginning that's helping them unload, that says that he's delivering Mickey munitions to a privateer in the belt, and he said, isn't it cool that we're all on the same team now? So apparently Earth and Mars now have a common enemy, so there's a new dynamic between them there. Kind of it's kind of an end of that Cold War kind of feel between the two, but I like that little nugget that they put in there. So apparently Avasarala's big mission, we predicted, we didn't predict, but we gave predictions on what we thought it was. Apparently her big idea was, instead of destroying this spotter ship, she wants to capture it. So she wants to capture this spotter ship, and so that they can get access to the data where all the rocks are and stuff on there. So a much more dangerous mission. And Bobby is kind of briefing Holden on that. There's a conflict between the two, where she's very much kind of this optimistic soldier for Avasarala, and the crew they just see, like I said, we said in the last episode, they just seem tired, and they're just like, I don't, you know, we're taking all these unnecessary risks, and there seems to be a kind of an ideological or tonal difference between Bobby and the crew. So that kind of creates some conflict too, where she's kind of this soldier, you know, this very like optimistic soldier and stuff as well. I did like the interaction with Clarissa. I think it was really well thought out. It's like, yeah, this UN security person is going to board the ship. You need to make sure that your convicted felon that you're harboring is maybe not around, or maybe being hidden behind. I think that was a smart decision to add that in there. It just made natural sense. And I love that Amos kind of just when she kind of talks smart to him, or when he was frustrated leaving the conversation, he's just like, hey, by the way, we have a convicted felon in the hold here. Have fun with that. Hold it. Explain this to her, you know, and just kind of like
Bomb and walk away.
yeah, just kind of threw him under the bus. I thought that was fun. So then we get the opening credits, and we go to series. So Philip is in a holding cell after his antics in season 1, where he got drunk and shot Yoan, and he's kind of sitting in a series cell. I like the little OPA touches that they put in the cell too. Thought that was good. And then Marco and I don't know their name, but the character that's kind of that was briefing Marco in the last episode about the supply ship things. I get the feeling maybe they're like a leader for Star Helix now, potentially on series. So like the police force there, they might be like a leader for that. They escorted Marco to come kind of bail Philip out and kind of get him out of his jail cell. And then as Philip leaves, Marco and him talk. They have a kind of tense standoff where Marco is essentially telling Philip he's an embarrassment, and he's been an embarrassment ever since he came on series, kind of berating him for his actions and very disappointed in him. What did you think of the scene from when they bail out and Marco and Philip have that discussion? Also, the one note before I hand it off to you as well is that he says release Philip, and the Star Helix commander says I can't do that, and seems to push back a little on that before he finally pulls the I'm the Free Navy guy. You need to listen to what I have to say. What'd you think of that scene from start to finish?
So I was very surprised to see Philip in jail. I didn't expect him to have consequence in pretty much any way, because like we had said, he's kind of like the prince of this free navy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so but to your point, the thing that I found engaging is Marco's political savvy is that of a revolutionary instead of someone who has to live with the things that they've created or set in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Marco at first is like, release him to my custody, and he's met with a little bit of pushback by I believe the character's name is Nico.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when that happens, I was like, okay, interesting. I see he doesn't have as much pull as he thought he did initially. And then when Marco really pushes and is like, all right, I'm Marco Inaros,
Mm-hmm.
and Nico has no choice but to relent. I liked it because it shows that there are kind of like levels to what people are willing to give in this government situation, and kind of like with the Avasarala situation from earlier seasons, there's going to be a point if he is leading this thing where he's going to have to start listening to other people, or he leans completely into being a dictator,
Mm-hmm.
which becomes the thing that he hates, right? And so then for him to discuss with Philip how he's kind of shamed him, and how look at all the stuff that I used to do, how we would go back to the mission even though we would sleep with whoever, we would get drunk, the mission was most important, and look what you're doing, you're squandering what we've set up. It shows his shame in Philip, in his son, for not being able to control himself. And I like the little addition of the cover story where it's like he turned on you and you defended yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I like that turn because it shows just how quickly you can spin a tale and make it so that this disappears. This isn't a problem for you. And look what I'm willing to do for you. I got you out of jail. I gave a cover story. You're good. Your life's taken care of. Now, how about you remember the reason why you're living your life? What have I trained you to do and become?
Yeah.
So I I love that Philip Marco dynamic there.
Yeah, it's he kind of goes like, isn't it real nice to have someone to bail you out, you know? Like I didn't have that, and it's like, it's kind of shaming him for him having these kind of resources and stuff where he's got a dad that can bail him out of jail and stuff when that kind of thing happens. And yeah, talking about Sin, who Sin is the Sin is that really big guy that Naomi knew that died in the previous season. Um and kind of talking about them working and them always coming back, like you said, to the mission and going back to work. You had fun, you did dumb stuff when you were off the clock, but you clocked in and you were responsible and you got your stuff done when that you needed to get done. And Philip is not doing that. He's kind of unraveling. So yeah, I thought that was a really cool dynamic there. And then the pushback, like you said, from Star Helix, there it's like the show is introducing maybe some fractures in that Inaros faction that he's built now, 6 months on, where you're starting to see that they're not just at the snap of a finger doing what he says. I mean, they are. I mean, she does like release him there, but there is some pushback, and you can see there's maybe some ideological differences about the martial law and the way he's governing series, and not really following the letter of the law like he should, and that may present some challenges for him going forward. We're back on the Rossi, and this is where Bobby is kind of detailing the mission to the crew, and she's talking to all of them about the fact that they're going to catch that spotter ship. We're gonna, I think they said we're gonna drive up behind the ship in the drive plume undetected. We're gonna jump on the ship. She's gonna use some kind of EMP device to disable the drive. They're gonna blast open the doors, take the guys out, and then all of a sudden they'll have the ship and all the data that's there. And this is, like I said previously, where we see those ideological differences between Bobby and the crew, where she's very much like a military person, and I think they're so world weary after all the stuff that they've done and all the escapades that they've been on, that they just see all the ways this could go wrong. It's a point of conflict there. A couple notes on this scene I wanted to talk about was Amos for the second episode in a row, discussing how they're not getting paid. So like he's like, how much are we getting paid for this? And I think in the first season he was like, well, Avasarala give us more money for taking out more of these ships. So it seems like maybe he's at that point where he's just looking to kind of he's like, if I'm going through all this, there needs to be some kind of reward for it, you know. Yeah, they're detailing the plan. What did you think of the plan overall? That they want to catch this spotter ship? I know we didn't anticipate that necessarily in the last episode, but it does make a lot of sense. If you capture the spotter ship, then you know where all the rocks are. So it seems like a really big haul if you're able to get that. What do you think of that plan?
Yeah, it's a really smart plan, especially because as we soon find out that these rocks were set to go off anyway. So it
Mm-hmm.
seemed like they end up having a schedule. So when we're talking about this and they're like, hey, if we do this, we know where everything is, as opposed to, hey, we destroy this and then there's another spotter ship that could take its place potentially. And so I thought it was an ingenious plan. It's one of those chess moves that are like your key move. Like when you look back and you're like, at what point did they win the game? This is one of those key moments where it's like, if they could take this spotter ship and get that information, that would be key to them being able to win this war against the Free Navy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great plan as well. It doesn't when she said it almost made too much sense. I'm just like, yeah, why would you destroy that ship when if you're able to capture it, you could get access to all of these rocks that are time to go off at you, and that way I think the watchtowers is what they called it on Earth would be able to know, okay, this rock's coming at this time, take it out, take it out, take it out. There's no longer a threat there. It goes from that scene to the Azure. I'm sorry, the Tynan. So this is Ashford's old ship that Kavita Drummer is now piloting with her splintered polyamphem, and she is meeting up with a pirate, one of her pirate contacts that she doesn't very much trust wholly, but she's dropping Michio off with them because she feels like she'd be safer with them than on this rogue treacherous ship that they're on now. Kamina is very much like a wanted person in the galaxy, so she thinks dropping them off with someone that's less of a threat would be good for Michio there. We get a new character. It is a new pirate in the vein of Ashford, and his name is Liang Walker, I believe. What did you think of Liang Walker, the introduction to his character, and kind of introducing this new wrinkle in the Free Navy, which is this there's a kind of growing discontent among some of the OPA factions about Marco and stuff. They're kind of introducing that story element as well. But what did you think of Liang's introduction in that scene?
So the moment I saw Liang, I instantly felt my heart missing Ashford.
Yeah.
I I love the old pirate in fiction, and so Ashford was one of my favorites. And so when I saw Liang and I was like, oh, he's part of that old guard, just like how Ashford was, especially with the way that he talked about the ship and how it was like a classic pirate sort of operation that they had, and the idea of people having some beef with Marco makes sense. Belchers
Mhm.
are scrappy. They've always been scrappy. They are survivors just by the nature of who they are and where they were born. And so the concept of a group of Belchers, however large or small, being like, oh, we'll partner with Marco because we see the alternative, and the alternative is either death or servitude or whatever it's going to become, as they do their predictions. The idea of them would be like, hey, we skim off the top, we make our living, and Marco kind of leaves us alone a little bit. I'm okay with that. And so that ideal and the way that he kind of carries himself is good. It's good,
Mhm.
and it gives Drummer something to play off of. It gives her an uneasy ally
Mhm.
potentially, which could serve for either a really jacked up betrayal or a really awesome support tool. And so, us as an audience not knowing which way he might lean with where Drummer is going, that's got some exciting potential to it. So, I'm curious to see where they're going to take this, and whether or not it's going to come back to bite the Polyam fam in the ass or not.
Yeah, it's his character archetype has been used in a lot of different stories, and that's what it's been. It's been this point of tension where you're like, they're almost outwardly morally gray. So like you're never sure. You're like, I don't. They could either be a really big help or they could be a huge like. The drama with them is so heightened because they're either going to really assist them in helping against Marco, or they're going to be like she alludes to in the scene where she says it's hard as a coffin nail. He could be the nail in the coffin for the to Polyam fam at some point as well. So yeah, I really like his introduction as a character. It adds another wrinkle to kind of Kamina's storyline and a point of drama, like you said, between the two. A couple of notes I had on the scene was so he's a smuggler and a thief, which kind of fits that archetype as well. He's Golden Bow, which is one of the OPA pirate factions there, and he they have been moving supplies. So they're moving water purifiers and stuff along those lines to the different supply depots that Marco has been trying to set up to make the belts self-sustaining. And I spoke in the last prediction that I thought Avasarala's big move was going to be potentially attacking the supply depots because that would give her leverage there. It seems like that idea is going to be spearheaded by Drummer and her ship and the Tynan and maybe this Golden Bow faction here. So they seem to be introducing that again there are splinters in Marco's loyalty, which to your point makes a lot of sense with Belter culture. You know, it's very much like what have you done for me lately, and it's very much about action over words. So they don't like his flowery language and stuff. And he even says like Marco's pretty hair and pretty smile and stuff. Like they don't have much respect for him as a leader. At least the Golden Bow doesn't. So it seems like Kamina's going to assemble this maybe rogue fleet potentially to kind of go at Marco there, which I think would be a really smart move, especially hitting those supply depots like we talked about before. It goes from the scene there to I think we're back on series, and Marco is looking at, and I wanted to kind of get your opinion on this scene because I wasn't sure exactly what he was looking at trying to do. He was looking at potentially trying to get supplies to Medina faster. It's kind of showing. I guess that scene is kind of showing that the belt is very stretched thin and resources are very scarce, and maybe the pressure is getting a little higher. Do you think that was the purpose of that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking as I saw that scene that this is a follow up to the conversation that they had in last week's episode. So I'm thinking that in the 6 or however many months it's been at this point, where Marco has taken control, okay, the needs of the belt are starting to come through, and he's looking at okay, if Medina is in the most trouble right now, is there a way that we can get there faster. And so I like when his assistant comes in, whose name is failing me right now.
Rosenfeld.
Yes, Rosenfeld. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So when Rosenfeld comes through and she's like, "Oh, this is the route. This is how we have to do this." He's kind of faced with the fact that he can't charisma his way out of this. This is a
Mm-hmm.
legitimate problem that he has. Sidebar, I just really enjoy the fact that Liang talked about his pretty hair and then he had it up in a bun in the very
Yeah.
just made me laugh.
Yeah.
Um, but we're seeing him try and go route to route. Like there's got to be a solution. There's got to be a solution, and there isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is again showing the fractures in Marco's plan. He has this dream, and he inspires people with the dream. Like Drummer says, he's good at getting people to follow him. And now the cracks in what he's able to do are coming through, and it's not getting to him as much as it's getting to Philip, but the stress is there, the pressure is there, and that's part of the reason why Rosenfeld I think is an interesting character, because she's very pragmatic and has the ability to just kind of tell him what it is, and that was one of the strengths of the interactions within this little sequence right here for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And continuing into that sequence, yeah, he does have a conversation with Rosenfeld, which is kind of shaping up to be his number two in command, especially with Philip faltering in the way he has. She's kind of stepped up to be that for him. They have a conversation about Philip and about his that he's kind of been a stain on the Free Navy since they've been in series, and he's been kind of an embarrassment to not just Marco but the entire kind of crew and ship there. They've all seen it. She has a very blunt conversation with him. They seem to be expressing that Rosenfeld seems to be the one person on the ship that's not tiptoeing around Marco, that's telling it to him straight, that's not really scared of him, that's not afraid of him. And I think Marco kind of respects that. He needs to have somebody that's able to kind of tell him the truth in that way without worrying about stepping on eggshells or around him and everything. So she's very brash, not afraid of him. And he says something that I kind of wanted to dig into, which was, he's a part of me. He's a part of me, and I think that really highlights Marco's narcissism. I think what he loves about Philip is that Philip's genetically like related to him. You know what I mean? I don't think he loves anything about Philip intuitively, like anything about Philip's maybe personality or any of his traits potentially. It's just like, he's a representation of me and he's embarrassing. You know what I mean? It's like it's a very much it's not, I don't think it's much worry about Philip as a person as much as it is about Marco's image and reputation that's being put there. Did you get that from that scene too? That kind of narcissistic, even if Philip's going through something, it's about me, and this is very tough for me to go through.
Oh, absolutely. Ever since the Marco and Philip dynamic has come to the forefront of the story, it has been a classic tale of a fractured father and son relationship due to the narcissism of the father. Everything that Philip is an extension of Marco. And I believe there's been points where Marco has referred to what he views as Philip's negative traits as coming from his mother. And so
Right.
Marco wants to take all the positive aspects, aka the aspects that he feels Philip got from him, and credit for that. But now that Philip is acting out and he is the only person around, instead of his mom being around, he's taking that shame head on. And so he's getting embarrassing. He wants to have these one-off conversations. He wants to tell him, hey, this is how you do this, because you are of me. And so you definitely get that vibe.
Yeah, he's like, you're not my clone. What's going on? Why are you not like a little Marco clone like I wanted you to be? And kind of wrestling with that. He's also angry. Like Marco is angry, and not just at Philip. He's angry at his position. He hates this. He hates being this like revolutionary. He hates being this revolutionary like symbol. He's a soldier. So like when he's tasked with these like logistical things of having to get supplies somewhere quickly, or having to maybe deal with kind of the more logistic problems that present themselves on Series in the Belt, because he's this leader there, he would much rather just not have to deal with any of that at all, because he's just this he's a revolutionary without a revolution. He's gotten control of this thing, and now he's having to deal with that, and you're starting to see that he's just not fit for that kind of leadership. And I think it's starting to present cracks where people underneath him are starting to see that he's not fit for that kind of leadership too. So that kind of presents a big challenge for them going forward. The scene intercuts with Philip going back to his quarters, or Yoan's quarters, and grabbing that awesome alligator vest, and then delivering a message to Yoan's family where he says Yoan died honorably serving the belt. Do you think that message that he sent may be a plot point that might bite them in the butt going forward? Just that they're creating this kind of propagandist message that Yoan fought a commanding officer and then kind of was dishonorably killed, and then the actual person that fought him is making this video message saying that he died honorably serving the belt. Do you think that might rear its head later?
I would love to. I would love to see that. It hit me kind of as a Chekhov's gun sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
The Expanse is generally pretty good at like subverting tropes, but that definitely seems like one where if the downfall of Marco is going to be his lack of political savvy, like true political savvy. I could see there being, sparks or kindling that is brought to a flame of revolution against Marco based
Mm-hmm.
on decisions that Philip makes. And so this being one of the ones where he directly goes against what his father told him to do, and there's evidence of it, I could see that being a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. It cuts from that scene. We're back on the Tynan now, and this is where they really flesh out the idea that Kamina is going to be assembling this rogue pirate fleet potentially to try to take back the supply depots. That seems to be the implication that I got from this scene. And it's kind of, this is where again they talk about he talks about that they don't really have respect for Marco, and talk about his pretty hair and pretty smile and stuff, and they seem to be presenting those cracks in Marco's giant Free Navy faction, that there's probably these segments there, which is one of the great things about the Expanse, in my opinion, is that no big group of people is monolithic. They all have these different factions that are different ideologies that go on, whether it's like Laconia and there's like the militaristic and the scientific community, and there's clashes in between that. Like nothing is just this one overarching person that represents a group of people, or a planet or anything like that. So presenting that, I thought, was really cool. And yeah, Kabina is starting to kind of make her play here, and obviously she could definitely use the resources of the Golden Bow if she does go this route. They only have 3 torpedoes and stuff, so this could also be advantageous in that regard. If they do make an alliance, they could maybe get some resources that way that they desperately need. But yeah, what did you think of the idea of kind of her idea to hit those supply depots and kind of try to conscript some Golden Bow that may be disaffected by Marco's leadership to join that cause?
Drummer is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
Drummer understands people. She understands belt very, very well. The idea of hitting supply chains is good because it's not the typical, we're just going to bomb wherever our soldiers are, right? Because the whole concept is, if the belt is united under Marco, you're always going to find more soldiers. There's always going to be a Yoan who wants glory, right? And wants everything that comes from that. And then you look at what supports them. What did the Belchers always want, right? They wanted the good resources. They didn't want to have all this crap that the Inners were sending their way when they were putting in all that work for years, right? Going out, bringing stuff for the Inners to have better lives. And so if you get rid of their food supply, of course the Belt is going to go into an unstable scenario, because that's what they wanted. That's what they believed they were going to get under Marco. They thought they were going to have better food. They thought they were going to have better lives. And so they follow this man, and Drummer's like, we hit these chains and that falls apart. We can get our own supplies and we're supported. And then those who are disenfranchised or will become disenfranchised with just a little bit of push, this is the push that gets them there. And so I think Drummer's got Marco in her sights, and she's she's got that fire for sure.
Yeah, and much like the Rossi plan to kind of take over the spotter ship, the Azure Dragon, it's not about destroying these supply depots. It's about taking control of them, because then the people are kind of in your hands at that point. The Belters that maybe need that food and water are loyal to you as someone that can provide that life sustaining resources that Marco can't. So it seems to be the plan seems to be to take these supply depots and kind of exercise that power over Marco, that he doesn't have the resource chains to keep these people on his side. So you can definitely kind of see. I can see the blueprints for his downfall. You know what I mean? Like I can already kind of see that manifesting here in different ways that I'll go into when we get into predictions as well. It cuts back to a scene of Philip, and he is kind of torn up with guilt over what he did to Yoann and everything else, but more specifically what he did with Yoann. And he goes to Rosenfeld and asks her to provide Yoann's family with resources since he died serving the belt. And she quickly says, "Hey, well, the story we put out there is that you were attacked, defended yourself, and killed him. So he died dishonorably, and they're not going to be getting anything." But then she, as an olive branch, extends that she'll give his family some resources there. So yeah, we had that scene there, and that's where he leaves the video message to his family that we think, like you said, might be a Chekhov's gun or something that maybe presents itself later to really cause problems for Marco's ability to lead everybody and kind of his image. And then we get to the fun stuff here. So it looks like we get right into the in episode 1 that we did, we alluded that there was going to be a big showdown between the Rocinante and the Azure Dragon, and it seems like this is the episode that it occurred. So we get this really cool showdown between them. It starts off first though with them kind of getting ready in the ship there. I thought there was a cool touch where Naomi had put on an MCRN suit, and I thought they kind of hung on that, because I just remember thinking how cool that was, because it's like they're on a UN operation, United Nations operations commissioned by Avasarala. There's an extremely famous belter wearing a Martian suit, and I was just like, this is kind of, when she gave her big speech at the end of season 5 and said this is what we need, and she was alluding to all of the people from the different places coexisting in this room. I thought that was a really kind of efficient way to show that, where it's like there's this belter on a UN mission in Martian armor. You know what I mean? Like everything's kind of working together to try to stop this threat. And yeah, they go through the operation. It's cutting back between that with Monica talking to Avasarala on the I think Luna. She's like the Luna correspondent now, and she's kind of pressuring Avasarala, who's beginning to go through this mission here. And I guess we can go through the whole mission. So they go through the entire thing, and Naomi has an issue going there. But if you want to walk through what your thoughts were from start to finish, from when they started this mission to the very end where they get this intel, what were your thoughts on this entire sequence?
Yes, so I loved the mission sequence. It was definitely smart to have that as like their act 3, because it had a lot of energy in there, and there was a lot of stuff that could go wrong. That I was curious to see how it goes, because part of the narrative weight of this season, especially in lieu of losing Alex and the way that we felt that in the premiere, was how does Clarissa Mao play a role in this? Mm-hmm. And so Bobby is pushing and saying, hey, this is the plan. And as they go and they open to space, and it's like, all right, it's time. We're going for this to drop this EMP. I love seeing them go through space from ship to ship as they finally figure it out. But the little grab lock that Bobby had on her glove was really interesting to see. I was like, oh, of course, that makes total sense. But it was Naomi's hesitation that really sold it for me, because when you think about everything that Naomi went through as a character last season, her space jumps, the fact that she would have a little bit of hesitation, and that would prevent her from
more like a paralysis. Like it was just like she couldn't operate,
Yeah. I loved that. Mm-hmm. I thought that was perfect, and it gave Clarissa her moment to shine. and her moment to be legitimized in the crew. And so I really like that falling sequence was great. I loved all of the stuff where they were shooting inside. I'll never get tired of seeing floating blood from guns shot on ships. That's just a highlight of the Expanse in general. But the thing that I really loved was seeing Holden as an effective pilot, and seeing him maneuver the Rocinante with the Azure Dragon. I thought he did great, and maybe I should have expected that. I should have anticipated him being a good pilot. But I think that he just really led the way and showed his chops as a captain in more than one way. It's not him barking orders, but showing that there are things that he can do when called upon. So I really liked just everyone's role in this entire sequence. And then, of course, I was going to say the MCRN. Of course, the Free Navy were attempting to clear out that data, because they realize, hey, we've been boarded. We're gonna have to stop this. But I thought it was just overall super effective and a great sequence. What do you think?
Yeah, really great, really fast paced. I think the highlight of the scene for me too was also Naomi's kind of paralysis there. I just thought that was such an efficient choice, both because it both highlighted and gave consequence to the traumatic experience that she went through at the end of last season, and really shows that there are lasting impacts of that trauma that she's still kind of needing to work through and needing to kind of figure out. And at the same time, I love that it serves both of those purposes, where it highlights that about Naomi, but it also gives Clarissa this opportunity to get in the good graces of the crew and to really show that she's a productive member of the crew there. I like the little touch too, where Holden asked what happened to Naomi, and she had the graciousness not to say she froze up and screwed up the mission. She says she had a technical malfunction. I thought that was a really nice little wrinkle for her to kind of hopefully get in Naomi's good graces after doing something like that. I also like that Naomi just wasn't a useless observer in that instance. She immediately kind of goes back. She musters the resilience to go to the panel and to come up with a clutch assist for Clarissa to pull the correct cord and stuff like that. I think it was a good synergy of having both of them help each other in that moment, as opposed to it being one-sided, or maybe Naomi having this kind of massive failing that ruins the mission potentially. Clarissa also uses her mods to save Bobby in an instance there, and like you said, alluded to with the floating blood, I'll never get tired of that. I'll also never get tired of like dead bodies being stuck by their feet and just kind of like hanging there, like those flailing arm men things that you see at like car dealerships, just kind of like you know what I mean, just like out there doing nothing. I think those look really cool as well. And I think that's what happened with the mission. They get in, yeah, like you said, they were trying to wipe the drive. They were unsuccessful because the breaching party with Amos and Holden got through there. I was a little confused because I was like, okay, so I guess Holden locked them into position next to the ship once it got EMP'd, and then I guess it went on autopilot and he jumped down and went into the landing party. I'm assuming that's what happened. Or
how I followed it.
Yeah. I think once she used that EMP device to shut the ship down, it wasn't going to be moving anywhere, so he was able to just kind of lock it into position and then run down and take over. Which I think was a good move too, because I think it would have been very out of character for Holden to just be a passive observer in that mission. You know what I mean? Holden very much wants to be the person that's taking on the most risk for the crew. So it would have been weird if he was just the pilot and just watching everything on a screen as they were going through all that, and kind of, you know, I get that he had to do that because he's the only one that could maybe maneuver the ship that way, but I'm glad that he was able to park it and get into the action, because that seems very like a very Holden thing to do. But yeah, I really love the scene. My question to you was, do they have control over all the rocks now, where they could maybe like manipulate the rocks to go where they want? Or do you think that they just know now where they are so they can anticipate when they attack and stop them? Like, do they have a new weapon in their arsenal now, or is it just that they've kind of taken that chip off the board for the Free Navy?
So that kind of goes into that conversation between Monica and Avasarala that's coming up, and why Avasarala had that smile on her face. Because I could see it. I could see it being a situation where, because they have access to where the rocks are from the spotter ship, and the spotter ship had the ability to communicate those things. I could see them being able to be like, all right, let's input this data and take control of the rocks. Because from what Marco ends up kind of addressing is that, okay, this is really bad. This is
Hmm.
really bad that they have this information, and so whether it is Avasarala being like, okay, cool, we can attack the Free Navy, or hey, we can defuse all of these rocks, including rocks that we didn't know even existed.
Hmm.
Uh, Both of those are massive wins. I personally would think it would be more interesting if they did not have the ability to fire the rocks,
Yeah.
only because how do you fire on guerrilla ships when the rocks take so long to send out? And it's not like Avasarala wants to bomb Ceres. It's not like she wants to do all of these things that Marco is willing to do, because you just have to bomb the Earthers, or whatever's left of Mars. To me, it wouldn't be tactical for them to use the rocks as weapons like Marco is doing, because they're not fighting the same style of war that he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so I don't think that they can manipulate the rocks to go where they want, because from what we saw in the first episode was it looks like the rocks just have a drive on them. They have just a drive that goes in one direction. They can't like pitch or go in different, like I don't think they can aim. I think what it is the spotter ship was waiting for it to get in the perfect trajectory and then firing so that it knew that it was going to hit Earth at a certain point. So I think that's probably the case. But the thing is with orbits is they could wait until the orbit is in a different trajectory, fire it off, and it could go kind of wherever they want. So they could have control in that aspect. The other way is that if you're using gravity assists around planets, it would just be maybe about slightly redirecting the rocks to circle around something and shoot the other way. So you could potentially use that as well. So I like you said, I think it'd be more interesting if they can't, because I think it makes them pretty overpowered if they're able to just kind of use the rocks against a foe that doesn't have watchtowers that can shoot things out of the sky. I think it would kind of overpower them, you know. Um, but at the same time, it presents this like it could be. It presents this like threat that they could use the rocks potentially down the line, and it could be something that maybe shows itself later in the season. I think Marco alluding to that it's a really big problem towards the in the last scene there is more so that, like you said, they can redeploy these fleets knowing that they don't have the threat of asteroids coming at all times. So they're able to redeploy the fleets in that regard. I don't think he was that too concerned about them maybe using the rocks there. But it does cut back to a scene with Monica and Avasarala, where Avasarala is trying to get Monica to maybe write a piece that maybe highlights the damage that Marco has done, and maybe the more on the boots on the ground type coverage of this crisis on Earth, and all the asteroids have done to the common man down on Earth as well. What did you think of this scene between Monica and Christian, and her kind of plan to hopefully, she said, try to grab some people on the margins in the belt?
I'm a big believer in looking at like series long character arcs, especially when we go into final seasons. And so the Christian Avasarala storyline has been one of my favorites, as she has become more human focused. Uh, it's been marvelous to see. And so when she's talking about the human side of things, what this actually reminded me of was the memorial scene from season 5, when she is mourning her husband and she sends his little phrase up at Luna. And the reason why I did that was because that humanized this central political figure, someone who Marco has no doubtedly or undoubtedly demonized
Mm-hmm.
to his people. And so when she's thinking about like who reaches what, you go back to her speech as well at the end, and it's like, hey, this is what Marco doesn't understand. Uh, you then see someone who has a lot of media influence, and she's like, you have the chance to reach people. And in the back of my head, I'm like, yes, because Christian was reached. She
Mm-hmm.
was able to be reached and kind of change her ways. And so maybe appealing to that humanity through Monica's large influence may be a way to tilt the scales. And even though she used her guilt trip to do so, and I loved her line about saying I do it a lot when I'm alone. I think it was really cool to see Christian thinking outside the box again, thinking beyond the violence of war, and more of saying like, hey guys, like we are humans. Let's see if there's anything that we can do here to appeal to that.
If you remember, like season one, she was the I'm gonna hang belters from hooks, and she was a very kind of draconian leader. She's very much not an ends justify the means type leader anymore. She seems to be more like these are human beings, no matter where they're from, like the Bell, Mars, or anything. And that seems to be a warming thing for her character that's come over the series. And I loved Monica's rebukes to her, like initial rebukes to her, where I'm not a propagandist. You have your own people for propaganda, and kind of pushing back on Avasarala, kind of reading the room and realizing that in a broader sense that Christian could just be using her as a mouthpiece for the state media. And she even says, she says you can reach people, and she said I have credibility that state media doesn't have, and you want to exploit it. And I thought that was good that she's at least aware of that machination potentially at play. So she says, yeah, you might change a few people on the margins, and if you don't do this, are you gonna worry about the people that it could have saved, and kind of guilt tripping her. And I did like that line too, where she says, I guilt trip myself on my own all the time. So she practices on herself essentially. It goes from that scene. We're back on the Rossi. It looks like Amos is debriefing with Clarissa, who's getting some medical treatment after her saving Bobby the way she did. Holden comes in, the very stern captain. He's extremely old school, and he essentially says, I know you were trying to help, but you broke the chain of command. That can't happen again. If you're going to be part of this crew, you need to understand the chain of command and make sure you're checking in with me on everything before making a decision. What do you think of that scene with her and Amos debriefing and Holden coming in to talk with her, and then him letting it slip that she's part of the crew? What do you think of that scene?
Yeah. So season 5, I was a major fan of the Amos and Clarissa storyline. Their trek to get back to Luna, I loved it. And so those two, I think, just have very natural chemistry. So when they're on screen, it's very easy for me to kind of fall into their rhythm. It feels very lived in. So when he's just kind of talking to her in the beginning, I like that. And then when Holden comes in and Holden's like, hey, can I talk to Clarissa? And Amos is just like, yeah, like not understanding the fact that Holden wants to do this alone and Holden just dealing with it. I love their dynamic. But Holden basically chewing her out by like, hey, like this is what we got to do. Like we have to, if you're part of this, we have to communicate. We can't just do this. My word is law as captain. And the whole time I was thinking what Clarissa was thinking. I was like, oh, he just said she's part of the crew. Like he has accepted her. Mm-hmm. And she kind of felt a little outside the realm of acceptance for a long time because they've been traveling for months now. Mm-hmm. So for her to get that little point, she had the little tear and she realized like, oh shoot, like I mean something again. I'm just this on the outs. So it was a really good episode for her, considering she had the Naomi connection, she had the Holden connection, and Amos is just kind of there. And so seeing all of them kind of work together, Clarissa is starting to feel like, hey, I might be rounding a corner. And I think that's good for her, especially considering everything she's done.
I love that, he says she's part of the crew, and that's all she heard, and she was just kind of like zoning everything else out. Because I think they all know. I think Amos and her, and even Holden knows that if she didn't make that call, the mission would have gone array. It would have not gone the way that it did. And but I think Holden, being as old school as he is, knows that really doesn't matter. She still broke chain of command, and there needs to be some, at least a conversation about it. And I think that's what that conversation was. But I love that, yeah, she didn't hear anything after he said crew, and she was just like, okay, I'm now kind of a part of this. I feel like I'm a part of something again, like you said. I wanted to rewind real quick because I did forget to mention something that I thought was a really subtle and really good character moment early in the episode between Holden and Clarissa. When Bobby's boarding the ship, he has to tell her that to go kind of stow away for Bobby, so Bobby doesn't know that they're harboring a fugitive or a convicted felon. And he calls her Peaches. He calls her Peaches on the comm, And what I really loved is the second he said it, he cringed so hard because he's like, "Oh, I called her Peaches, damn it!" Like it was like he's heard Amos call her that so much over these past 6 months that he just naturally called her that, even though he knows that their relationship isn't like that. So I love that it was such a really quick moment, but he goes, "Hey Peaches," and then she answers, she's like, "Holden," and then you just see him go, "Ah," like you see him just like look like cringe, like I can't believe I just called her that. I thought that was a really great moment between the two. But yeah, I did love the scene between them and her and Amos there. And it goes after that scene to we're back on series, I believe. And they've just found out, Marco and Rosenfeld have just found out that the Azure Dragon is offline. It doesn't look like it's been destroyed. It looks like it's been captured. They see comm footage of the breach and them getting shot. So now they know. They're like, it looks like somebody, I don't know if they know it's the UN or not, but somebody has access to um, their rocks and the spotter ship, and now the fleets are going to deploy. Um, this was the final scene here. I really love the fact that Marco smiles because it really alludes to what I've been saying the past two episodes, which is he has hated his position here as like this political leader and this logistical leader for Ceres. Um, right when he finds out about that, he's like, "Let them come. Let's bring the fight here." And he's smiling about the whole thing. And you're like, okay, like this is what Marcos wanted to do the whole time. He just wants to have a brawl. He wants to have a huge brawl with between the belt and try to win this on the battlefield, and not these kind of political leanings that he's been doing there. Is that what you got from the scene here as well with him kind of smiling at the news that they've taken back the Azure Dragon and that the fleets are going to redeploy?
Yes, I have alluded to this before. I outright said it. Marco is a romantic for war.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely romanticizes it and the struggle and the revolution and putting one's life on the line for the beliefs. That is where he feels most at home. And so this is his first major loss in 6 months. Like this is his real big loss. And so he's back on the back foot. And he's good off the back foot. His little drive is what has gotten him this far. And so for him to take such a major loss and to smile just kind of shows, okay, I'm back in home territory now. I feel comfortable with this. Let's bring them here, and I can lead us to victory because I know what I'm doing here. I may be out of my element and the day-to-day political stuff and how to get people food and whatnot, but when it comes to fighting a war, oh yeah, I can do that. I'm all about that. And so I liked his kind of resolve going in. If we look at these 6 episodes as like a 3-act play, episodes 1 and 2 are the first act, right? So that's the setup. That's what is going to start taking us into that main conflict. That's going to drive through episodes 3 and 4. And so to see him like this as we go into that change in the act, I'm definitely hyped to see what he's going to do, how he's going to come back from this, because thus far, Marco always comes back, right? He's always like, you gotta have your knife in the darkness. And exactly. So this is where he's gonna shine, I think.
Yeah, and I was gonna touch on that too, because like I think it's really good characterization that he's really good off the back foot. Because like right before he decided to throw those rocks at Earth, they had a all black screen, and then him say the line, "You always have to have a knife in the darkness," and that's his MO. You know, like you said, that's his MO. He's that guy. So it's going to be really interesting to see his kind of guerrilla tactics and how these elegant guerrilla tactics manifest in this instance, like they did last season as well. But that was episode 2. We're gonna go ahead and jump into predictions, but before we do, I just want to say thanks for everyone that watched episode 1. If you guys are enjoying the podcast or the video here, make sure to, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the video down below. We're going to be covering every episode this season. If you guys are listening on the podcast, make sure to share the podcast with anybody that loves The Expanse and could get something out of this after show here. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to rate the podcast 5 stars and leave a review. That really helps everything get seen. But we're going to go ahead and jump into predictions. Danny, do you have any specific predictions after this episode that you think might manifest in the next episode or going forward in the series?
So I think next episode, we are going to see some Laconian soldiers. That is, they've kind of whet my appetite for it. So I'm thinking we're gonna see soldiers at some point. We might get a reference to the doctor who was focused on the protomolecule, and some of the stuff that's happening there. But I think we're gonna see a little bit more presence on Laconia. I I don't think it's going to happen in episode 3, so I'm going to withhold on what one of my predictions is. But it has to do with Avasarala and where I think her character is going. And then I think that we're going to get a little bit more about what this plan with the rocks is going to be. I think we're going to specifically hear what Christian's plan is, as opposed to just being like, oh cool, I've learned what these rocks can do. I think she's going to want to do something with them, or she's going to hold a war council and they are going to say, we have the rocks, let's do it. And it might be one of those situations where it's like, are we going to kill people? So I think we might get into something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That if we've been talking about whether or not she can use the rocks. If they can use the rocks, the question becomes, should they? So if she does, like you said, hold a war cancel, and maybe she is able to wait for these rocks to be in a particular orbit to fling at Ceres, she may be pushing back against that idea potentially, or something along those lines there. So I can definitely see that maybe taking shape in the next one. I had two kind of small predictions. I think that, so I usually, two things in a row is usually potentially a sign of a pattern here. I think the show is gonna be opening with Laconia throughout the entire season. So I think like every episode is gonna have a small sample of Laconia and kind of what's going on at the beginning of the episode, and then we're gonna get into our main storyline after that. I think that's probably gonna be the pattern of the season, and it's gonna slowly reveal that small arc in the first ports of each episode. The other thing is, I think Kamina is going to try to take the supply depots, or at least in the next episode, she's going to be aggregating the Golden Bow and kind of gaining those ships and that kind of power so that they can take the supply depots. I think that's probably going to happen in the next episode. And I think by the end of this season, I'm going to make a bold prediction. I think Amos is going to be filthy rich. I think he's going to be extremely rich. I think once whatever resolves with this season happens, he's going to get a boatload of money from something, and he's finally going to kind of get that adoration, or at least the resources that he's been wanting for all of the work he's been doing or something. I have a feeling he's just going to be rich at the end of this, because it seems like they're alluding to, like, he's like, are we getting paid for this? Like, are we getting any money out of this and stuff like that? So I think that might be something there. And then my big prediction is Avasarala has commissioned Monica to create this project to try to maybe get some belters that are on the fringes to maybe go against Marco, or realize that what they're doing is wrong, or that it's not, it's not the right play to be following the Free Navy. I think one of those people that is going to be on the margins that flips on Marco is going to be that Star Helix commander that was with Philip, that was kind of getting him out there. It's possible that Monica's project reaches that leader, and they kind of flip, and they decide to use their status on Ceres to try to go at Marco. But mainly, this episode was about showing that there's cracks in Marco's world, right? There's 3 different things there, with the Star Helix person resenting the way he's operating on Ceres, his son's displays of kind of unsteadiness, and then also the OPA factions are showing some disloyalty to the Free Navy as well. So this episode is really presenting those fractures there. What do you think about that prediction that maybe the Star Helix commander could potentially be the person that Monica flips with her project?
It'd be interesting. I think a revolution within a revolution is cool, and we saw some of that pushback, that there are some people who aren't afraid of Marco, or as afraid of Marco, I should say. And so if it were to be that commander, I could see it happening. You have access to weaponry. You have access to men who will follow you before they follow someone else. It would be a great win to have. I'll definitely.
Yeah, That's all our predictions here. Again, guys, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure to share it and give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts if that's where you're listening there. It's going to help the show out a lot. I just did a review on the Disc Media for Power of the Dog, so you guys can read that on the website as well. And I'm planning some stuff for my other channel on the Diss Track, which is linked in the description below. Danny, do you have any kind of projects or anything you're working on? I know you've seen a couple movies, but are you planning on doing anything with the channel?
No, I'm thinking about coming back and talking about my thoughts on Spider-Man. I've seen it a couple of times already. So be on the lookout on the Fate of the Internet YouTube channel, and I'll probably be dropping my thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home, probably after opening weekend, so we can get the spoilers out of the way.
All right, awesome, guys. Well, yeah, keep an eye out on his channel. It is linked in the description below. We are a third of the way through the series, which seems like it's going so quickly, and we're already a third of the way done. It seems like there's not enough time left here. But as always, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're having a great holiday season. Discuss amongst yourselves, and we'll see you guys next week.